Hi guys, it's Mrs. Longmire here. In our previous lessons, we've talked about how readers compare text. The first lesson, we talked about how readers can compare topics, and we talked about comparing pizza and ice cream and Oreos and peanut butter crackers. And then in our last lesson, we talked about how a lot of times readers want to compare to fiction text or literature. And so when we do this, the categories are always the same. They're the story elements. They are the character, the setting, the problem and solution, and then the theme or the lesson that we can learn. Those never change when you're comparing two pieces of literature or fiction. And so today we're going to talk about how sometimes after you do the T chart and you pull all those details out, all the details about text A, and then all the details about text B, sometimes readers want to write about their thoughts and write about how they're similar, how they're the same, and also write about how they're different. And so that's what we're going to work on today, writing about those similarities and differences. And so we're going to add some things to our chart. How we're going to do this is we're going to write about one row at a time. And so we're going to look at one row and look at, for example, how are the characters similar and how are they different, and write about that one row. And then take another row. So we're going to write about one row at a time. And so I'm going to add this to our chart here, where you could write about this row or this row. You could go down the line and write about a row. So I'm going to put this little bracket up so you can see one row, and it says write about each row. So I'm going to put that little phrase there down at the bottom. And then we're going to use the form that we've been using, where we can draw a picture. And for some of you, it just might be a picture and maybe some labels. And for some of you that can write sentences, there's lines underneath to write sentences. So we're going to use that same form that we've been using. But on my chart, I'm going to add this with the box for the picture and the lines underneath. And we're going to use words like they both have, or they both do, both are, those sort of phrases. Or blank and blank are different because, or they're the same because. We're going to use some of those words and phrases to explain each row and how they're the same and how they're different. So I'm going to add that to the bottom of our chart there. Okay, so I'm going to show you how this could work with a couple of rows, and then I'm going to need your help. Okay, so we'll start with the characters, right? The characters, and the two books that we really looked at yesterday were Goldilocks and the Three Bears and the Three Little Pigs. So when we looked at the characters in both, for the Three Bears, it had three bears, Papa Bear, Mama Bear, and Baby Bear, right? And it had Goldilocks. And we talked about how Goldilocks is sort of greedy or nosy. She walked into somewhere where she shouldn't have gone, right? She was sort of being nosy or curious. And she ate their food and slept in their chair or broke their chair and slept in their bed. So she was being greedy. And so that was on yellow because that was my thinking voice thoughts that I was having. And then over on text B, the Three Little Pigs, they had three pigs, and they were brothers, right? Three pigs, and they had a big bad wolf. And so when I look at that row and I want to see how they're the same and how they're different, I think about how they both have animals, and they both have three animals, three bears and three pigs, right? And they're all family, right? And both books have, we talked about last time, sort of a bad guy, someone that comes in, a big bad wolf that's trying to blow their house down. Goldilocks that comes in their house and takes some of their things. So they kind of have a bad guy, right? That's what they have the same. Okay. And if I think about what they have different, well, the bad guy in this book is a wolf. But the bad guy in this book is a person. And so the Three Bears has a real person in the story, where the Three Little Pigs just has animals. So that's kind of how they're different. So if I wanted to write, so if I drew a picture first of the Three Bears and Goldilocks on the left, so I have Papa Bear and Mama Bear and Baby Bear, and there's Goldilocks. And then on the right, I have the Big Bad Wolf and the Three Little Pigs. Okay, so how they're similar, I wrote both texts have characters that are three animals. Remember, three bears, three pigs. So they both have texts that are three animals. They both have bad guys who try and come into their house. So that's how they're the same. They both have three animals, and they both have bad guys that come into their house. And so if you weren't writing sentences, you could just label like bad guy, bad guy. You could put labels on there, right? And then how they're different, the Three Bears has a real human, a real person, and the Three Pigs does not. They do not have a real person. So I wrote some sentences about how they're the same. They both have three animals. They both have bad guys. And then a sentence about how they're different. The Three Bears has a real human, and the Three Pigs does not. It's all animals. Okay, so let me try another one, and then I'll need your help, okay? Let's have you watch me. We'll do one more row, so let's do another row. So if I was going to write about the setting of both stories, well, we talked about the setting of the Three Bears. It takes place at the Bears' little cottage in the woods, and it's daytime. And the setting of the Three Pigs takes place in the woods, but it's in the pigs' houses. And so, both settings take place in the animals' homes. The Three Bears takes place in their home, and the Three Pigs, it takes place in each piglet's home. So if I wanted to draw a picture of this, I kind of split my box in half, and on the left, I drew a picture of the setting of the Three Bears, and I wrote bears on the Bears' cottage and in the woods, and it's daytime. And for the Three Pigs, I drew the house of straw, the house of sticks, and the house of bricks, and I drew the woods, and I drew daytime. So if I wanted to write a sentence about this, some sentences about this, you could just label woods, animal house, so that you could just label the picture. But if you can write sentences, you could write the setting, because that's the row we're in. We're talking about the setting. The setting in both texts take place in the woods during the daytime. So that's one sentence. They both take place in the woods, and it's both daytime. And then both texts take place in the animals' homes. Both texts take place in the animals' homes. So the setting is so similar. They are so much alike. I couldn't really come up with how they're different, but they are a lot alike, the setting. And so I wrote two sentences about how they're alike. They both take place in the woods during the daytime, and they both take place in animals' homes. Okay, are you ready to try this with me? Do you think we can do the next row here? Okay, so the next row was the problem. Remember, there's always a problem, and then the solution. How does it get solved? So for the Three Bears, we said Goldilocks ate all the porridge, she broke his chair, and she slept in his bed. And sort of the solution is she never bothered them again. And I have a little arrow. She's running out of the house, and she never bothered them again. And if we look at the problem and solution of the Three Little Pigs, the wolf blew down the first two houses. So you just see piles of straw and sticks. He blew down the first two houses, and he couldn't blow down the third house. He tried, he's huffing and puffing, but he could not blow down the house of bricks. So that's sort of the solution. The other pigs went to that brother's home, and they were all safe in the brick house. And they were all safe here because she never bothered them again. And we kind of talked last time about how they both destroyed things. Remember that? Like Goldilocks destroyed Baby Bear's chair and ate all of his porridge and messed up his bed. She destroyed things. And the wolf was destroying the first two pigs' homes. So they do have some things that are the same. So if we drew a picture, think about what you would draw on the left for the three bears. What could you draw? Did you say an empty bowl of porridge, or a broken chair, or a bed? Yeah, that's the problem, right? That's how you could draw the problem. You could draw a bowl of porridge, a broken chair, and Goldilocks in his bed. And what could you draw for the solution? The solution for this story. Could you draw the three bears at home? Is that what you were thinking? The three bears came home and she ran out the door. So I have the three bears here. She's running out the door and she never comes back, right? They kind of scared her, I think, and she never came back. Maybe she didn't realize it was a bear's house, I think. Yeah. Okay. So that's what you could draw for the left side, the three bears. Then what could you draw for the three little pigs? What was the problem in the three little pigs? Did you say you could draw the wolf pulling down the first two houses? The house of straw and the house of sticks? Yeah, great. So you could draw the wolf, and I have some lines coming out like he's huffing and puffing, right? And I drew the little pigs at the bottom of the pile. They're getting ready to run to the house of bricks, right? So there's the problem. And then what could you draw for the solution? What do you think? Could you draw a brick house? Yeah. With a little pig's head peeking out. Like, come on over here. So they're going to run over and join their brother, aren't they? That's the solution, because the bricks were strong, right? So what if we wanted to write some sentences about how they're the same? What did we say was the same about the problem and solution? Did you say they both have bad guys who destroy things? Yeah. So you could write something like, in both texts, the bad guys destroy things. In both texts, they're destroying things. Destroying chairs and beds and destroying houses, right? Good job. Also, what happens at the end of both? What happens to Goldilocks and the wolf? Did you say they leave and never come back? Never bother them again? Yeah. The bad guys leave and never come back in both texts. The bad guys leave and they never come back in both texts. So think about how they might be different. How do you think Goldilocks was feeling at the end? Do you think she was scared? Yeah, I think she was scared. Maybe she didn't realize it was a bear's house, right? So she was feeling scared. How do you think the wolf was feeling when he couldn't blow down the house at the end? Do you think he was scared? No. How was he feeling? You think frustrated? He wanted to blow down that house and get those pigs, right? Frustrated, exhausted from huffing and puffing. Yeah. So the bad guys had sort of different feelings at the end, right? So in the three bears, Goldilocks is scared at the end. She's scared. That's what we're using our thinking voice. She's scared. But in the three pigs, the wolf is mad and frustrated. So the villains, or the bad guys, sort of had different feelings at the end of each text. Goldilocks is feeling scared, and the wolf is feeling frustrated or mad. Is that what you were thinking? Yeah. Great job. You did an awesome job of helping me write about a row. Let's do one more. Let's do the theme or the lesson that you can learn. Okay. So think about the theme or the lesson that Goldilocks learns. When they come home and she runs away, what lesson did we talk about that she could learn? Yeah, we talked about to mind your own business, right? Not go into someone else's house and take their things. Mind your own business. Leave people alone, right? And what do you think the wolf learned in this lesson, in this story? What do you think he learned when he couldn't blow down that pig's house? To leave the pigs alone? Maybe go find something else to eat. Yeah, don't waste his time with the pigs. They're too smart. To mind his own business. Yeah, so they're sort of similar, aren't they? Sort of in the lessons they learned. So if we were going to draw a picture of what they learned in each text at the top, what could we draw for Goldilocks? Yeah, I drew a picture of her like kind of crying, and she says, I'm never going back there. And maybe she's playing with some other friends, right? She's not going to go into somebody's house anymore that she doesn't know, right? I'm never going back there, and have her kind of crying, and she's got some other friends that she's playing with now. She's going to mind her own business. Yeah. What can we draw for the wolf about what he learned? Did you say minding his own business? Yeah, I drew him with a big bowl of salad. And he says, I'm going to stick with salad. It's much easier, right? I'm not going to try to go eat pigs anymore. I'm going to stick with salad or vegetables, right? Something I can grow and I don't have to go get. Yeah. He's going to mind his own business eating a salad, and she's going to mind her own business playing with friends. Okay, so if I wanted to write sentences about how they're the same, what do you think I could write? How were they the same? Did you write something about how they mind their own business? Yeah, in both texts, the bad guys learn to mind their own business and leave people alone. In both texts, the bad guys learn to mind their own business and leave people alone. What do you think? How do you think they're different? What do you think the three bears learned? What do you think? Maybe to lock their door from now on? Don't leave their door unlocked so people can get in? Yeah, to lock their door. And what do you think the three pigs learned? What did they learn? To build their house out of something strong, like brick. They learned that straw and sticks don't work, right? So they learned to build houses out of something strong, right? So they are different because the three bears learned to lock the door. That's the lesson they learned, to lock the door. The three pigs learned to build strong houses. So even though the bad guys sort of learned the same thing, the three bears and the three pigs sort of learned different lessons, right? The three bears learned to lock their door, and the three pigs learned to build strong houses. Great job. You just helped me write about another row. And we wrote about what's the same and what's different. So if you were in Mrs. Longmire's class, I would have you do this again. I would have you try to take your T-chart from the Pete the cat that you did as the assignment last time. You know, you did a pet for Pete on the left side and Pete's big lunch on the right. And you wrote about the characters and the setting and the problem and the solution and the theme. So my challenge to you is to do some writing. Maybe pick one row to write about. Or if you want, do a couple of rows. But remember, do one row at a time. And then I want you to use some sort of form. If you don't have a printer, we're going to give you this again if you want to print it out. But like I said before, it would be very easy to just take a piece of paper and draw a big box. And remember how I was drawing that box? I was drawing a line sort of down the middle to divide, to draw the two different scenes. You know, draw from this text over here from Pete's, a pet for Pete over here, and then a big lunch over here, but draw two different little pictures there. And you can label those pictures. And if you can write sentences, write a sentence or two about what's the same about that row. What's the same about these characters? And what's different about these characters? Like for these two Pete the Cat stories, both books have Pete the Cat. But I bet there are some characters that are in Pete's A Pet for Pete that aren't in Pete's Big Lunch, right? So write about what characters are the same and then what characters are different. You could write a sentence about who's the same in each book and write a sentence about what's different about the characters. Okay, so that's what I would have you do if you were in Mrs. Longmire's class. Write about one or two of those rows from your T-chart last time. But your teacher might have an even better idea.